definitely need more Anna Escamanis, Carlos Guillermo Smiths, and Chevron Joneses in
Florida,
Tallahassee.
for sure.
We certainly do not have enough of them, and
No.
that is certainly something that we are working on. And Jasmine, I can only imagine that you probably do have a handful of I don't want to call it a squad. I think it's a tacky way of looking at it, but you have your crew, you have your group, the people you can rely on that are non-corporate. They are going to fight for the issues that really matter. And building that bench, I think, is key. And I also think a lot of people look at the Texas Democrats and the fact that you did have a spine and that you did fight back. And the truth is, the GOP respects you if you fight them back. They kind of laugh at the Democrats in the standpoint that they're just, we're just going to run all over them. They're not going to fight back. But when they fight back, they're like, oh, all right.
I find it interesting that some people in Texas they don't have the best long-term memory, because Ann Richards was a Democrat and she was badass. And the Democrats in Texas have taken stands before. It's not unheard of. I mean, yeah, it's a red state, but the Dems everything in Texas is just a little bit more badass than it is everywhere else. I don't know why everything's bigger, little bit slower, but definitely more badass.
Jasmine, I have to see something really monumental, because as much as our governor is a jerk and does everything about thinking 4 or 5 moves ahead, he has a hell of a team around him. He generally does not make decisions that is going to kneecap him politically. We'll see if he actually does anything stupid enough like he just did. We agree that he bit off more than he can chew with the whole mask mandate stuff. This is a county strong state. Is it county strong in Texas as well?
It is. Texas is a pretty county strong state.
So if the county commission,
like Jasmine said, the leaders of their state came from counties. That's how it works there.
Yeah.
It's
we have, thankfully, strong county legislators who basically say, you're not going to determine what we do with our schools. If we want our kids wearing masks, and that's that. And that is a battle that, he lost on. We'll see if he keeps at it, but he tends to walk a very fine line with not going far enough where he could actually damage himself. And the reason I'm saying that is, do you feel that Governor Abbott has gone far enough? Because what people probably don't remember is that even though Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke had a very close senatorial race, Governor Abbott ended up winning his seat for re-election by 13 points. So my question is, are we at a point right now where you think that there might be a possibility of a solid challenger taking on Greg Abbott next year? Is that something that you could see? And do you feel that the Texas Democratic bench is at a point now?
And how can we help with
that? And how
can
we help?
No, you're absolutely right. In fact, we spent a lot of time this cycle trying to take away local control, because the governor was upset about how the locals were controlling in the Democratic areas, right? So they love small government. They love local control, so long as it's the Republicans that are doing the so we had a bunch of fights on that. But you bring up a good point about Governor Abbott. His approval rating has dropped to the lowest that it's ever been, ever. Now, he has been elected statewide in multiple capacities. He was our attorney general. He was on our Supreme Court. He is our governor, and he now has the lowest ratings. And I think that he really hit the depths, not because of voter suppression, because I think that it's really a complex idea for people to really understand. I am appreciative to the media for staying on it for so long, because it takes a while to educate the general public and really get them to understand why it's so important. But when it came to the mask, that's when he started going down. And he was fighting against, the local governments, and the local governments were winning. And the Supreme Court, which has a number of people that were appointed by him, they kind of a little nervous about this one, right? And so they've kind of been like, we won't necessarily get rid of the temporary restraining orders that have been handed down by mostly Democratic, I think all Democratic judges. But also, he's fighting. When he just did the bill signing, normally our bill signings are done in Austin. He decided to do the bill signing for the voter suppression bill in Tyler, Texas. What's interesting about Tyler, Texas, besides the fact that it's super duper red, is that he may be worried about Tyler, because Tyler decided, okay, we will not defy the governor. We will work around him. Tyler, that area voted for Trump at a rate of 70%. Yet they decided, we're just going to do masks as part of our uniforms. So we're not defying the governor, but we are ignoring you, right? And so he's like seeing this backlash and he's seeing his ratings fall. And so, he's actually stopped publicly talking about the mask mandates because he was really all in and he was saying, no, it's about personal choice and all this other kind of crazy nonsense. And so he's not talked about it very much. He's stopped talking about it, actually.
He must have gotten a bad focus group result on that. And his advisors came in and said, yeah, you might want to tone it back a little coming into the election cycle. So
absolutely. And then he had a dog bill that he vetoed. And I was like, I don't know why you mess with dogs. I mean, dogs have more rights than
what?
Do. Yes, he vetoed a dog bill. Yeah, I promise you, he vetoed this dog bill, right? So then it was trending on Twitter, like Abbott hates dogs, right? And I was like, Abbott hates everybody. But like it's literally trending. And so that was in the regular session. He vetoed that bill. We had our first special session. It wasn't on there. We had our second special session. It wasn't on there. All of a sudden, as we're supposed to draw new lines, he adds the dog bill. And I was like, oh, buddy. Like,
what is the dog bill? I need to know what is the dog bill?
Do you hear that, Lou?
Well, it's a tethering bill. And it talks about basically like dog abuse, which I was on the committee that it came through. And I was like, technically, I think we have laws to kind of cover this. And anyway, there was a lot. Basically, using a chain that's too heavy on a dog. But there was so much more in this bill. It was like, don't leave a dog unattended and not have potable water. Don't leave your dog outside and there's puddles everywhere. It was a lot of stuff where it was like, is this a dog or is this a child? I mean, it was definitely, it had to have adequate shelter. And I was like, can we get that for people? Right? Like I was really having questions in committee, not that I'm like against like dogs, obviously I love dogs, right? But I really wanted to challenge those that were looking at this bill and say, hey, this is actually a good model for us to talk about like homelessness, right? And like living individuals, pro-life party, right? Like I really was wanting to have that conversation, especially since we ended up with so many people. I was concerned about potential unintended consequences as it relates to homeless people, because I have so many, I'm sorry, I shouldn't say homeless, unhoused people.
Unhoused.
I have so many unhoused people, specifically in my district. And honestly, they usually are probably a lot better about taking care of their animals than some of us that have houses, right? Like that's truly their companion, but they're not going to have a doghouse because they don't even have a house. So I was like, this is kind of stupid, right? Like, do not make this a crime. Like if they can't, like it should be just kind of more so centered on whether or not there is something of an abusive nature. So there was the first portion of this bill I thought was absolutely amazing, because we really should look out for those that are, trying to train the dogs for dog fighting and things like that by doing improper tethering. So we're going to take that up because
But he could have just signed the bill and been, get the acclaim of being a dog lover, and it wouldn't have any negative consequences. And instead, he decides to ignore the dog. Why would someone do that?
It's very easy. It's very easy to rally voters around dogs. That is a very easy one to do.
We don't care about the people.
No, we don't.
No.
The same places that have dog bills probably put homeless spikes or unhoused people spikes coming up out of is that a thing in Texas, the spikes?
Not the spikes, not yet. Don't give them any ideas, but we did have groups that specifically went after unhoused people. They wanted to criminalize them. And so we had a stupid bill. I mean, there was like, hey, if you defecate or urinate in public, and it was specifically for homeless people. Then it was going to be punishable for 6 months in jail. I was like, I don't have time for this, guys, stop it. Like, this is stupid, right? Like, and so, that was one in my committee that I was able to kill, thankfully, but they did pass another one because they were so upset about Austin. And they were like, there's just too many homeless people, unhoused people. But as we were looking at the pandemic, obviously shelters were doing things differently as far as like social distancing and things like that. And so I'm like, so you don't want to provide for an alternative like measure. You're just saying if you give them a citation, which they potentially will miss court on, then somehow they're going to be more diligent about getting housing. I was like, that doesn't even make sense. And they decided that they wanted to punish, say, a city like Austin, and they wanted to prevent local electeds from buying and trying to help out, because Austin decided that they were going to buy a hotel to help out with their unhoused person's issue, and they had an issue with it. So
and that's another thing. I mean, I could spend like an hour at least talking about this, because it's infinitely easier and less expensive to provide housing. So it's one of those things that it's the same as healthcare. Like, it's so much more affordable to just house people. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.